And so there's a big bean cook-off, and then they had like the little bean queen, whatever. I was a little bean queen one year.
Cute.
It was precious.
Welcome back to the next episode of the Bonita Interview series. I'm Madison, and this week I had the pleasure of interviewing Mrs. Oualline, who teaches AP Language and Composition as well as Yearbook. In this episode, we will dive into her love for Texas and all about her favorite experiences, places, and how Texas shaped her into the person she is today. Let's get started.
Hi Bearcats, thank you for joining us. Today I'm here with the great Mrs. Oualline, who knows all things Texas, so I'm going to be asking her some questions about Texas, which is where she grew up. So where exactly in Texas did you grow up?
I grew up in South Texas, just outside of Corpus Christi. The town is called Odom. There's only about 2,500 residents, so there's probably more people on campus right now than there were in my hometown. And so really, really small town, but it's down on the coast of Texas. So in South Texas, that's where I grew up.
Wow. Is there anything about your hometown that was special and unique?
It's a typical small Texas town surrounded by cotton fields and a pretty big farming community. There's not really a whole lot in the town. One stoplight, 4 gas stations. It's the last town you go through before you get to Corpus Christi, which is a bigger city.
Okay.
And so because a lot of people go down to like Padre for South Padre or North Padre or Corpus Christi for spring break. That's kind of the busiest time of year, and a lot of people make their last stop in that town before they get to Corpus Christi, where they're going.
Right. So growing up in such a small town, were there any traditions or experiences from your childhood that felt uniquely Texan to you?
So whenever I was a kid, my town had a big spring festival every year that was like in the town square in the little park, and it's a really big thing. Everybody was part of it, and there was a bean cook-off because it was the spring bean festival. And so there's a big bean cook-off, and then they had like the little bean queen, whatever. I was a little bean queen one year.
Cute.
It was precious. And then just Texas is known for anything. It's football, and Friday night football was everything. And then actually the school I went to was really good at baseball as well, so we had a huge baseball tradition. So sports, raising animals, and little festivals. That's pretty much it.
Keep it simple. How do you think growing up in Texas has shaped your values and personality today?
Well, I mean, I guess everything about me has been shaped by growing up in Texas because I didn't really know much of anything else. I grew up in a really small community, as I said, but also my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, and my great-grandparents, both sets on my father's side, all lived in the same town, and I had a whole bunch of cousins in town. I was the 4th generation to go to the high school that I went to from my family. So just growing up with so much family around, and all of my events, I could look up in the stands and my grandparents were there. We had lunch with my grandparents every Sunday, and everything that I did, they were a part of, and I think that aspect has certainly shaped who I am.
Right.
And I think that's a very Texas thing. The town I grew up in is very family-centric. There's a lot of people in the town that are multi-generational, that are, the family ties are really important and a really important aspect of the community and community life.
So what is something that you appreciate now more about Texas, now that you're older, that maybe you didn't when you were younger, if anything?
I'd say probably the food. More since I've moved out of Texas. But I don't know, I guess the pace of life. Whenever I was younger, I always looked forward to leaving my hometown, and I haven't really been back much since I graduated high school. I moved away pretty quickly, and I only go back to visit family. And so I think the pace of life, in a small country town, everything is slow, and people aren't really worried about getting from point A to point B. People stop and have coffee at the Dairy Queen and end up in a long chat with somebody, or staying after church on Sunday for 30 minutes talking to somebody's grandma about somebody who that they know and what they're up to, and just that slower pace of life. I think I appreciate more now than I certainly did whenever I was younger.
Okay, so now shifting gears a little bit, you went to Texas A&M. What made you want to attend that school?
The number one thing is nobody from my graduating class was going there, and that was like a number one requirement for where I went. And my parents mandated that I stay in state, so I was really down to the University of Texas, horns down, or Texas A&M, which I chose to go to. And there were 2 people from my graduating class going to the University of Texas. So I went to Texas A&M. Even though I was a journalism major and the University of Texas had the better journalism program, but I really wanted to go somewhere where nobody knew me. Growing up in a small town where everybody's known you your whole life, the same group of people, I mean, I think with like 90% from kindergarten to my graduating class, it was the same group of people. So a graduating class of 70. So that's why I went to Texas A&M, and then, the rest is, I guess, I learned once I got there.
Right. So in what ways did that school shape you into who you are today?
Probably the biggest thing, when I was a freshman, there was a huge tragedy on campus. The tradition of a bonfire before playing the University of Texas in football is like a 3-story bonfire, like a massive, massive bonfire that was built over the whole course of the fall semester and then burned the night before the Texas game. It was student built, and it took months to build it. It was, like I said, massive. And my freshman year of college, it collapsed mid-build. Wow. And like 12 students died, 27 were injured, and I was going to be a journalism major. And just the way like the media descended on College Station, because it was like national news whenever it happened, and I was in one of the dorms that was on duty that night, so every time I left my dorm room for like 3 weeks, there were cameras and everything in my face, and it just really turned me off from journalism, and I went back to my first love of education and changed my major, and so I think that whole experience more than anything shaped me into who I ended up becoming.
So what is your favorite thing about Texas pop culture? So that can be musicians, food trends, TV shows, or anything else that just screams Texas to you.
Well, there's nothing more Texas than football, and so that's always I love football. I definitely love Aggie football. Right. And while I love all sports, I guess the one thing that is the most Texas for me would be football, and secondarily would be food culture. There's no such thing as really good barbecue out here in California. The first time I came out here and got invited to a barbecue, I was very disappointed to find out they meant like a cookout, like hamburgers and hot dogs, and not brisket. And so, really good barbecue, that's huge in Texas. And while I do love good traditional Mexican food as well, Tex-Mex is close to my heart too.
So do you have a favorite place to visit when you go back to Texas? That can be a restaurant, a city, or just something fun that you always make sure to do.
Well, I lived in College Station, where I went to Texas A&M for longer than I lived with my parents. I moved there when I was 18, and I moved out here when I was 38. So I lived there for 20 years. So even though it's not my hometown, it's the place that I always go back to. I have lots of friends there. Some of my favorite food places are there, like Freebirds or Papa Perez or Wings and More. Those are all places that I always visit whenever I go back. And so we always visit family too, but I always make a point to stop by College Station whenever I'm back in Texas.
So what is something you think surprises people when they visit Texas for the first time?
The heat, the humidity, the bugs.
Really?
Yes. When people from here, from California, go to visit Texas, or if sometimes I hear Californians are like contemplating moving to Texas because, lower prices and all kinds of other things.
My family's guilty of that.
Right. And then I'm always like, go visit in July and then go back in August. Texas has like 3 different versions of summer, and each one worse than the one that came before it. And so I think, it gets 100 degrees out here. And I was like, yes, 100 degrees with 100% humidity.
Wow.
Very different.
Uncomfortable.
And before I moved out here, I never really liked to be outside because it was always either too hot or too cold, and there were always bugs everywhere. And now I love being outside sometimes, as long as the sun's not out.
To finish this interview off, if you could describe Texas in 3 words, what would they be?
Wow. 3 words for Texas. Howdy.
Howdy.
Because it's, the Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
You got to have that. Yeehaw, because people do to love the country life, and Giga Maggies.
So thank you for coming in today. I had a pleasure interviewing you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed getting to know Mrs. Oualline a little bit better and her interest in Texas. Stay curious, Bearcats, and join us next week for another interview. See you then.